All right, we're going to use Moment here. Okay, so here we are in the Moment interface. You can see a audio chart here. We have our histograms here that show the brightness levels. The first thing you got to make sure is that you're in the filmmaking mode. So this switch here runs you through the different modes. We want to be in video. Over here we have ISO. So you want to change your ISO, you would tap on that. Changing your ISO, you can see it listed here. Shutter speed is here. And shutter speed we want to be on 1/48th because we want the shutter speed to be twice as fast as our frame rate. If you want to increase or decrease just exposure value, that'll be here. Auto F, that's autofocus. So that means we're in autofocus right now. If you tap on that, you can manually change focus, and Moment has focus peaking, which means that when something is in focus, it's highlighted with this green. So you can see here the curtain is out of focus, and as I pull through focus, then it starts to be in focus, and then now there it is. Now the curtain is in focus. Kind of a bad example since I'm basically focusing on a flat plane, but still you can sort of see like the depth. There's, because of the curve of the curtains, some of it's in focus and some of it is not in focus. Here's a better example of focus peaking moving through depth. As I focus through depth, you can see the focus peaking highlighting the areas that are in focus as I move focus closer and further away from me. Focus peaking is just a tool to help you very quickly identify what part of your image is in focus. I'm going to turn this back to auto just by tapping on something to focus on it. AWB is auto white balance. So we tap on that to go through our white balance. You want to go very warm or very cool. Daylight is 5600 Kelvin. Right now it's kind of cloudy, so it's going to feel a little bit warm. Over here on this side, we have our resolution. So right now it's on 4K. You can tap on it and go through the different resolutions. I want to leave it on 4K. This is our frame rate up here, 24 frames per second. You can tap on that. You have the different frame rates that are available for that specific resolution. So mine can go up to, at 4K, it can go up to 60 frames per second. But if we drop the resolution, let's see what other options we have. So if we go to 1080, then now you can see that my frame rates are much higher that I have available. I can go up to 240 frames per second if I want. I don't want to do that. I want to stick with 4K. Moment has different styles of color capture. Right here we have the default curve, which means it's going to capture sort of a pleasing straight out of camera image. If you tap on that, you can change it to flat, and so that decreases the saturation a little bit, so it broadens the dynamic range of the footage capture. But also then at that point you'll have to go in and start color correcting. Or you can go even flatter and you can select log, which is the flattest of all capture profiles. It's the broadest dynamic range, so it captures most detail as far as the range between darks and lights, but you'll definitely have to color correct. So that's for someone who really enjoys color correcting or wants to capture the most dynamic range in their footage. Otherwise, if you're just good with things out of camera and minimal color correction, then you could leave this on default. Here we have the default color space. The default colors will be easiest to use straight out of camera. You won't have to do much color correction. You can do some minimal color correction, but basically the level of contrast limits the amount you can push your colors around. Switch to flat. That gives you a little bit broader dynamic range. The flat profile gives you a little bit more space to push colors around as far as color correction. It also recovers a little bit of the highlights and the shadow information, generating that flatter image. You can apply the level of contrast that you want. We switch to log. It gives you the most dynamic range. And in the log profile, that is the flattest of the color profiles. It saves the broadest range of dynamic range, recovering the most in the highlights and the shadows, giving you the most freedom in color correction that you apply. Back to flat and back to default. If you happen to have multiple lenses on your phone, which I think most phones now do, then you can tap on these to cycle through them. So this is the regular wide angle, This is the super wide angle. And then this is the zoomed up. So regular one. If you come here, you can tap on settings. And in settings, I would definitely turn on the grid. I like the rule of thirds grid. Another cool thing that Moment does is not just focus peaking. I love focus peaking. Here you can turn focus peaking on and off. Here you can turn the histogram on and off. But highlight clipping and shadow clipping tells you when your highlights are getting blown out and your shadows are getting crushed. So blown out highlights mean that they're in the highlights of the image. There's no longer detail. It's just flat white. And then vice versa for shadow clipping. There's no longer detail in the shadows. It's just flat black. So you can turn those on. I'll turn on highlight clipping and see if we can force that. Yeah, here we go. See those red zebras in here? That's highlight clipping. That's saying, hey, in that spot is just blank white. So if you don't want to have it, you have to decrease your exposure. There, so as we go down, we start losing those warnings. We still have a little bit in here where the light is peeking through, but there at least we know we don't have blown out highlights anymore. I think that's everything. Shutter speed, ISO, exposure compensation if you want to make something brighter or darker, focus, right now it's on autofocus, and then white balance. And I'll set that at 5600.